Their way up here. Good, and as they do, I want to thank WPC for giving me the opportunity to speak this morning. It's very nice also to have some familiar faces. I've already met a number of familiar faces. Hey, you're up too, Sarah. When I was diagnosed with Parkinson's 6 years ago, actually 6 years ago this month, and at that time I knew nobody personally. As a physician, I'd taken care of a lot of patients who had Parkinson's disease, but I had no personal contacts with anybody who did. 3 years ago, I attended the World Parkinson Congress. About 2 months before that, I met a colleague at work, and we had talked just briefly about the symptoms that we had. And so at that point, I can definitely say I was not part of a global Parkinson's community. Over the last 2 years, though, I've had a chance to travel, and I've been to over 50 countries and looked for Parkinson's support groups, been able to meet with a number of Parkinson's support groups, met thousands of people with Parkinson's. And so what I hope to do today is kind of set the stage, give some images of the challenges that people have around the world, what I've seen, as well as some of the successes. And hopefully that'll just get us as a group to start thinking about, again, those areas where we might be able to collaborate and areas of, like Steve said, potential. And advance here. So you've probably all seen this image. It's actually from 1886, so 130 years ago, and we still use this as, that most recognized image of the person with Parkinson's. But I think if we look around the room, those with Parkinson's, most will not meet this image. And so we all have, as individuals, separate needs for support, needs for treatment. But if we look at any community, there's that spectrum of those individuals, and that is similar. So all around the world, if we take a community of 100 people or 1,000 people, we're going to have that same spectrum of needs. But what's different from place to place is how well those needs are being met. So this is images from some of the websites of Parkinson's support organizations in the United States and Europe. And I think what we would hope as far as support, so having the family members involved, having friends involved, having the care teams involved, certainly that's, I think, what we would like to see as people with Parkinson's, and those are trying to help people with Parkinson's. Now this is a lady that I didn't meet, I just saw, on an isolated road in the middle of the island of St. Vincent. One of the challenges I had was to try to run across 5 islands in 5 days, and halfway through across this island, I'm coming across this lady walking with a cane, clearly has a wide-based, shuffling gait, masked faces as I got closer, and clearly a lady with Parkinson's. Now, having found that there was not a neurologist on the island and not being able to find a Parkinson's support group or organization to work with to promote Parkinson's awareness on the island, I would think that this is probably, safe to say, the image of a person who's not yet part of a global Parkinson's community. So our challenge is a little bit daunting. Across the world, somewhere 6 to 10 million people with Parkinson's. The last World Parkinson Congress, we had 750 people with Parkinson's at the Congress. So that means one person at the Congress for every 10,000 people with Parkinson's around the world. And so how do we get those people, not necessarily to the Parkinson's Congress, but involved in, like we've said, a World Parkinson's community. And so global nations, 196, not just people with Parkinson's, but those taking care of people and so forth. Across the board, 64 nations were represented at the last World Parkinson Congress. So I think that gives us an idea, again, of that challenge in front of us. So with such a kind of daunting challenge, again, what I would like to do is give you some of those images, again, of the people that I've seen, some of the successes, some of the unmet needs from some of the groups around the world. Some of those will be represented here today. You'll see some images of some of the people in the crowd here, but most of them won't be. Most of those are, people that they're not involved with the World Parkinson Congress, and so how do we reach out to those areas? It's not working too good. So we'll start in Mongolia, which is where I started my run a couple of years ago. When you go to the state hospital in Mongolia, which is where all the neurology care for the country takes place, there's hundreds of people outside of the hospital. You go in, hallways, hundreds of people waiting in the hallways. And when I get in and actually get a chance to talk to the neurology staff, it's clear that they can only take care of those people that actually get into the hospital and into their offices. They just don't have the capabilities to start support systems, to promote awareness and those sorts of things around the country. So I think that raises that first question, is how can we overcome these economic challenges that we have for developing and promoting Parkinson's support? In Vietnam, we were able to put on the first Parkinson's symposium for patients, and that was mainly because Dr. Min Lee, who's in the picture here, had a large roster of those with Parkinson's that he took care of, and then was able to leverage the fact that I was coming to the country to put on a half-day opportunity to educate the people. But finding those people can be very difficult to bring them into the mix. And so how can we, in these communities, identify those people who have need? In Japan, there were a couple gentlemen that I met with that had just heartbreaking stories. And so they're both in the picture here, a couple of elderly gentlemen. One had advanced Parkinson's symptoms, but wanted to attend his school reunion, but was not going to go. It was in the next week because he was afraid that people would look down on him and how they would view him now that he had Parkinson's. The other gentleman just wanted to have a coffee shop to go to. That's what, he just wanted to have a place he could go in the morning, have his coffee, and just feel comfortable. But he said every time he went to a new place to try to see how he would feel at that place, he would feel that people were looking down upon him, or he felt uncomfortable because of his Parkinson's symptoms. So how do we overcome this social stigma that can be attached to Parkinson's? You'll see Sarah up here, and you'll get a chance to hear from Sarah Lou in just a little bit, but I don't know if you'll get to hear about Sarah. So when I went to Malaysia, I was able to meet with the Parkinson's Association there, and it was clear that that association was being held up single-handedly by Sarah. And many, many years, she did that simply as a volunteer, not a paid employee, just volunteering her time. And so I think one of the most difficult things in areas is going to be how to recruit those community leaders, those people that actually will be invested, spend the time to actually keep those groups afloat. In Singapore, one of the, you can see just I think from the picture, everybody's in the same shirt, so a very organized community there. One of the most impressive things was the way that they approached newly diagnosed patients, because as soon as they were diagnosed, they had a network with the hospitals and clinics to have them referred to the Parkinson's Society. Once they were referred, then they could be assessed, they could determine what the needs were that individual had, and then educate them about the services that they were providing. So I think being able to organize the available Parkinson's support services is another important point. In Nepal, we put on, just happened to be there on the World Parkinson's Day, and with a little bit of fundraising, we were able to put on an educational forum there as well. Without an active Parkinson's support society or organization, it's very difficult to get the word out to the general public. So even though we were able to put on a small group function here, it was difficult to promote that beyond those that were in the meeting itself. So how can we actually educate the general public about Parkinson's is another question. If you look at this picture and I ask you what country we're in, I'm pretty sure that nobody will say the United Arab Emirates. But this is actually a group that was just starting to form a small Parkinson's support group in the UAE. This is a group of people from America and from Europe who lived in the UAE and had very unique needs and based on their own culture, living in a different country. And so I think within any community, we need to consider those demographics and the demographic groups that need special attention. In Croatia, we were able to leverage my time there with it being Parkinson's Awareness Month at least, to meet with the president. And since the president and the mayor of Zagreb are political rivals, they were both very motivated to show up and profess their support for Parkinson's. But it gave the head of neurology an opportunity to meet with the president, the mayor, and let them know what the needs were for the Parkinson's community in their city and their country. One of the more difficult things to do is certainly going to be and is to get political support for Parkinson's support programs. Another very organized Parkinson's support organization is the national organization in Slovenia. They were able to actually have buses come from each of the regions, because their Parkinson's support is divided into regions, to come in to the city for the event that day. But an even more impressive project that they have is, everyone who is newly diagnosed is invited to a retreat, a weekend retreat, where they take people with Parkinson's and their caregivers and bring them to the coast, and they have a weekend where they can learn about Parkinson's, the disease, what support's available, and so forth. And so, but again, that educating people that are newly diagnosed with Parkinson's, I think, is really a key. This is an image from Macedonia. When I met with the neurology staff in Macedonia, they said that they had tried on a number of occasions to start a Parkinson's support group. But culturally, it was just not common to discuss your medical conditions in public. And so despite multiple attempts, they could not come up with a group that felt comfortable discussing their Parkinson's needs and the Parkinson's symptoms and so forth. And so how do we overcome some of these cultural biases about Parkinson's to get the groups to open up? This was a real unique need that I would have never guessed meeting with this small group in Albania. We spent probably more time that night talking about the topic of how to get medications. So they could get free medications through the government clinics and pharmacies, but they felt like the generic medications that they were getting were not effective. And so they had a number of different strategies. And whenever anybody traveled abroad, they had different ways to get medications and bring them back, primarily from some of the other countries like Turkey and India, generics that they felt more comfortable and thought were more effective. And so how do we get those effective treatments to everyone around the world? This is a picture that we took a little over 2 years ago in Finland. This is a picture we took last Saturday in Portland. And so you can see a lot of the same faces here. This group brought 12 people from their Parkinson support group, not just to the World Parkinson Congress this week, but to spend a week touring the Western United States. This is not the only group that I met along the way, but one of many groups that really felt more like a family than just a Parkinson support group. They weren't just going to meetings to get education about some latest treatment or, related to Parkinson's, but they were going there for real social support. And so how do we get the social support involved in Parkinson's support programs as well? When I met with the group in Iceland, they let me know that I just missed by 2 days their monthly Parkinson's support group meeting. And so I asked them what the topic was, and I was surprised to hear that it was poetry. And I said, that was interesting. I thought maybe, some poems by a person with Parkinson's or something. And they said, no, every other month they have a non-Parkinson's topic that they discuss. And they found that that keeps people much more involved, more interested in coming to the meetings on a monthly basis than if they just talked about Parkinson's every time. And so again, how do we keep those people engaged in Parkinson's support groups? This is a picture from our group down in the corner there. The first Parkinson's awareness run walk in Barbados, 2015, so last year. And then this was a picture just a couple months later, the first Parkinson's support group in Barbados. So they were able to bring together people for an awareness walk and run, identify those people with need, and then form a Parkinson's support group in their country. And so how do we identify those people and start brand new Parkinson's support groups? This is our group in Las Vegas, a group of young onset Parkinson's patients. And so for us, we needed kind of unique activities that were directed toward our group. And so this is one time that we went hiking in the Red Rock Mountains. And so it's clear that not every Parkinson's support group is going to have the same needs. And so how do we meet the needs of those subgroups of those with Parkinson's and provide them support? I think we have the group here from Power for Parkinson's in Austin, Texas, and they've done an amazing job of coming up with a vast array of classes, groups, and things to meet the wellness needs of those with Parkinson's in their community. So, going beyond that medical treatment, but filling in those other areas where people have wellness needs as well as their own physical needs as well. So I have to say, for every time that we've had a success, I would say, met with a group, I learned something, hopefully they learned a little bit as well. There were areas where I could not find anybody. So, and I'm talking about neighboring countries. So, we had a great Parkinson's forum in Vietnam, but next door in Cambodia, I ran by myself. Could not identify an organization to partner with. In Malaysia, we had a large group come out and run together. In Brunei, I was by myself. Again, in Croatia, we were able to meet the president, but then just next door, a number of the Balkan countries, including Bosnia, I was running again by myself. And then in Barbados, again, they put on the first Parkinson's awareness run walk there, very successful. But in the other islands, including Antigua, I could not find anyone to partner with. There was not an organization already in place to promote Parkinson's awareness. And so hopefully I've given you some things to think about, and I hope that throughout the day and then carrying on throughout the week, we'll all learn from each other and find things that maybe we were already struggling with to figure out how to make something work and learn from somebody else that's had a success, or even hear things that we never even thought were issues maybe in our community, and be able to, now that we are aware of those issues, address them. And so I thank everybody for giving me this moment to introduce this topic. Again, this idea of a global Parkinson's community is kind of a special topic for myself. And the last thing I want to do is, as a person who lives here in Portland, I want to welcome you all to Portland, and I hope you have a wonderful week here. Thank you.